Friday, everyone. Welcome to Somewhere in the Middle with Michelle Berard. I'm your host, Michelle Berard, founder and CEO of Urban Book Editor. And I'm really pleased to share this hour with you, where we examine all those places where spirit meets life and the joys and challenges that may bring. You guys know I like to start by thanking Ms. Beverly Black and Tribe Family Channel for helping me create this space for us. Tribe Family Channel is home to an assortment of thought-provoking shows that explore life, spirit, business, and culture, including The Woman at the Well, hosted by Ms. Beverly Black herself. Somewhere in the Middle was born on Tribe Family Channel. And though we have grown onto our own platform, we are ever grateful and loyal to our roots. To paraphrase an African proverb, we are here only because we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. I want to say thank you to my guest on the October 21st, 2022 show, Sam Thiara, founder and chief motivating officer at Ignite the Dream Coaching and Consulting. You can connect with Sam on social media and at his website, sam-thiara.com. That's sam-thiara.com. If you missed that show, make sure you listen to the replay. You can find our complete show archives, including the October 21st show at the somewhereinthemiddlepodcast.com. I also want to shout out Bruce George of the Genius is Common movement, which encourages all of us to embrace our inner genius and share it with the world. It is really important that we share this message with the kids, but it's not just for the kids. We grown-ups need to be reminded that the world needs our genius too. Learn more about the Genius is Common movement at www.geniusiscommon.com. Now, this month's guest is really interesting. He helps men grow through their experiences. Christopher Burns dedicates his life to coaching men to activate their purpose, power, and prosperity. He has been coaching men, entrepreneurs, leaders, and professionals for almost a decade and works with clients one-on-one, in-group coaching, home study courses, and hosts live events, retreats, and masterminds. Christopher's company coaches and teaches men through the Mastered Man curriculum, where men create their purpose manifesto, start to master the skill of channeling power, download and relieve their prosperity codes, and implement the transcendence blueprint so they can leave their greatest legacy. He has interviewed 800 leaders, influencers, and experts, sharing powerful growth strategies, mindsets, and teachings to empower his audience to find the bigger answers to life, resulting in over 500,000 views and podcast downloads. Today, Christopher is the host of the Mastering the Man Within podcast and the founder of the Men Mastermind, a brotherhood dedicated to empowering men to become the ultimate creators of their reality, designing and living a life of success and fulfillment in every area of life that matters most to them. As Christopher says, it's time to level up. So I'd like to welcome Christopher Burns to Somewhere in the Middle with Michelle Berard. Christopher, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Michelle. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm really excited. I think I told you already, I kind of studied up on you a little bit and listened to some other interviews with you, and you're really an interesting person, and what you do is, I think, extraordinarily valuable. So I would like to get into that by asking you two questions.
Okay.
Christopher Burns, who are you, and how did you become who you are today?
Who I am is a conduit for life force energy, for God, for the universe, for source, for creator, to move through me and experience this reality from a human's perspective. And I'm just a piece of the greater whole. I have my own sovereignty, quote unquote, my own choices and decisions and what I prefer and all these things as Christopher Burns. And I'm constantly also reconnecting to who am I, the greater I am, the greater we are as a humanity, as a universe. And so there's so many dimensions to that question. And I like to just say that if it weren't for God moving through us, then we wouldn't be, And so I really like to acknowledge that and say that whatever is the highest will of all of us, that's what's being done. And I trust that. And I have faith in that's being lived out and carried out through each of us in our own unique ways. So that's who I am today. And I definitely was not always like this. I was not. So I grew up with a kind of Christian upbringing with my parents. And around the teen years, middle teens, I wanted to rebel. I wanted to claim my own sovereignty. I wanted to be my own man, and always felt kind of inferior to my dad. He was 6'2", I'm like 5'9". So I like compared myself height wise. He had bigger muscles. I was like this shrimpy, scrawny little white boy, in my eyes. And deep down inside, I felt like at some level that there was something wrong with me. I'm a loser. I don't belong, whatever it might be. And so I started off very insecure, very afraid of the world, very not confident. I was not an effective communicator. I was not meant to speak in public. I was not speaking in public. I was doing my best to hide, and I hid in my room. I played video games. That was my life. And like I said, I was also rebelling at the same time against my parents. And so I decided, well, I'm going to be an atheist. I'm going to go out and party and go to raves and, do what I want when I want. And no one's going to tell me anything about it. Mm-hmm. And so I experienced some pain, Michelle, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, doing that, feeling disconnected, feeling unclear on, like, I didn't feel love. I closed myself off to love and to receiving blessings and connection. And I actually wound up in jail a couple times. Thankfully, nothing serious ever happened. But one of the last time I was in San Bernardino County Prison in Southern California, and I was there for 2 days, and I was praying to God. I was at this place of surrender, of humility, saying, I am screwing up my life. I got my electrical engineering degree. I had learned about personal development. I was doing good things to move in the right direction, but I was still in that rebellious, angry, resentful, wounded little boy living from that perspective. And I just humbled myself. I said, God, I clearly have no idea what I'm doing. And I've wound myself up in a really scary situation. So if you can get me through this phase of my life, if you get me out of this, if you get me to where I'm supposed to go next, I promise I will dedicate the rest of my life to being a better version of myself, the best version of myself, and supporting others in doing that same thing. And so fast forward, I get out of prison, the 2 days that I was in prison, and the charges were dropped, case was dismissed, and I just start cleaning up my life. I go to Toastmasters, do way more personal development, hire my first life coach, and there's just a lot of transformation that happens in there. But I would say that was kind of the big thing that catalyzed me to become the polar opposite. I experienced so much pain in that rock bottom moment of potentially having my freedom taken away, the rest of my life taken away, potential felony, all these things was like at stake. And like I said, I was there was angels, guiding me through that season in my life, and helped me to get to where I am today.
Okay, you said two words that really jumped out at me, and one of them you said a couple of times. You said conduit. Mm. That seems like a really significant way of viewing yourself and life in general. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So if we see life as one big organism, Earth as one big organism, right? It's like I'm an appendage. I'm a finger. I'm an arm. I'm a hand of God. And God or universe, source, Earth, whatever. I don't care what we call it. It's more about what's the essence, what's the infinite intelligence that's moving through it. And so for me, I've came from this place of being so egoistic and thinking, oh, like as a human being, I'm so powerful, right? And it just didn't work for me, Michelle. And it was frustrating. And it's like, yes, I'm powerful, and there's something a lot more powerful that I can tap into and lean on and have faith in that will create a lot more happiness for me. It'll allow me to serve more people. It'll get myself out of my own way. And so when I say being that conduit, like literally life force is moving through us. We see our flesh and bones and this physical 3D thing, but there's something so much bigger than that operating us, right? And you may have heard of Krillian photography, and it's this thing that you can look at the energetic emissions of anything really, but we can look at it at our body and see that energetic body that exists beyond just the physical thing. And I've studied quantum physics to some degree, and understanding how this universe makes itself up, our cells in our body, and then diving even deeper into the atoms and what makes up an atom. We used to think it was this solid thing, but we're actually finding out it's really just energy, and it's waves and particles, and so it's like the more I explore into this, the more I'm convinced that it's not about this 3D thing. There's some life force, some greater intelligence that's moving through us to allow us to express ourselves and experience ourselves as human beings for whatever reason, right? For its entertainment, for whatever purposes. And so I'm just here to be that conduit and get out of the way of God in that highest consciousness.
So I think this is really interesting because I was married to an electrical engineer at one point. And I would not consider him to be the most spiritual of people. We married in college. And so I would, at that stage of our lives, certainly not have considered him to be a particularly spiritual or even introspective in some ways person, because y'all think numbers, y'all think circuits. I know how electrical engineers think. And this seems to me like quite a departure from that traditional way that you all are trained to think in college, right? So how did that happen? I mean, it couldn't have just been, hey, I was in jail, I started praying. There had to have been more to that whole exploration.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a couple big components. I don't know if you've heard of human design, but it's definitely something that I've been looking into and studying more. My wife is in love with it. My mentor teaches about soul science and has integrated it really deeply. But from what I understand, I'm a quote unquote 1-3. And so this means that the 1 is like, I'm really detail oriented and I love details. So that's kind of that engineering bent. And then the 3 is more of like the experience oriented being, the experimenter, the person who goes out and tries things. So I believe I have a really affinity for details and like, why do things work the way that they do kind of thing. And also that curiosity of, I'm going to go experience it. And so the first part of my life, I believe I modeled my dad a lot because he was a computer programmer and he loved computers, and I loved computers because I saw him loving computers and I loved to build computers. And then when I got to college, Michelle, I was really actually disenchanted with becoming an engineer. Like I was like, what? I do not want to spend the rest of my life doing this, and not to be a jerk or rude or anything like that, but I felt like a loser being a nerd, right? Like that didn't feel fulfilling for me. It didn't feel like fun. Of course, now I know, well, hey, it's awesome to be smart and intelligent, and you can have additional skills. You can be able to communicate, be able to lead. But so I found myself in this place of feeling like a nerd and a loser, and I'm like, okay, complete opposite spectrum. Let's go. And so that's why I think I entertained that partying season in my life so much, is because I wanted to be cool. I was like desperate and hungry to be cool on the outside to other people. And what happened was I graduated college, had this rock bottom moment, and I said, there's something that I'm not tuned in with. And so the pain of like, the pain and suffering of that experience said, okay, something is not right here. Let's slow down. Let's stop. Let's turn inward, right? I had a reason. I had a compelling reason to turn inward and start looking at the details within me. And I also had this experiential bent to me to say, I'm here to experience what is within me rather than conceptually get it. It's like, it's okay if I get tied up in my brain, and I have done that, like over analyzing, overthinking, things like that. But I also have this aspect of me that's like, no, I want to go experience the exhilaration of dancing, of being at a music festival, of riding dirt bikes. Like I loved dirt bikes when I was growing up. And I love this adrenaline rush of living life on the edge and experiencing it while also being able to look at those details. So I think every individual is different, but I was not born to be an engineer, so to speak, and stay there. I was born to be this dynamic individual that brings in emotional intelligence and awareness of myself. And that's kind of what I did. I really spent the next couple of years mastering the feminine, listening, being intuitive, being in tune with my emotional intelligence, and connecting with people. And I felt like the masculine kind of dropped out of my life. I didn't feel like I was being a powerful man in a lot of ways. Looking back, I felt like unworthy and not powerful and things like that. But I was really nurturing that feminine. So now I've swung back because I have a wife and a family that I'm building and leading these men to really committing and devoting myself to what does it mean to be a man? What is that masculine role in our life? And how do we bring masculine and feminine into a balance so that we can all thrive?
See, now that's something that's really, I think, important for all of us to understand, is that there's no such thing as just masculine and just feminine. There is this ideal of some sort of balance, and it may look different for different people, right?
Yep.
But in our society here in the United States, I can't speak to Europe and different places, but it seems to me that right now there's a huge focus on dealing with toxic masculinity. And I can't help but wonder, because as a woman, I like certain things about men, some of the stereotypical things about men, because I think that they complement some of those stereotypical things about women, and they're stereotypes because there may be some basis in truth. They're not the absolute, they're not the complete truth, but there may be some basis in truth in some of these things. For example, men tend to be physically stronger than women, typically for upper body strength, let's say.
Right.
I like men picking up heavy things for me.
Yep.
And I worry that the focus on what they're calling toxic masculinity sometimes maybe goes overboard into targeting masculinity in general. How does your program, I mean, I know you work with men, you help men to step up and become the men that they are intended to be. How does your program help with balancing that male and female energy, that masculine, that feminine energy within them, but also how they can present it to the world in a way that's safe for them and makes other people feel safe? Yeah.
Such a great question. So for me, I find that having sacred spaces where men are able to express themselves, like we just had a workshop here in Vegas. When was it? About a week ago, a little over a week ago. And one of the things that we supported the men with is expressing rage, pent up anger, pent up stuck emotion within them, and their authority as well, their voice, speaking their truth. And when men can have a safe place to do that with other men, and we were giving it to each other and receiving it from each other. So we were expressing rage, looking at another guy in his eyes, and going all in, expressing that anger or yelling or whatever it might be. And then he would give it right back to us, and we would recognize that it's not dangerous to us if we express it in a healthy way. What is dangerous, Michelle, is when people ignore that it's there, or they try to suppress it, they try to depress it, they try to pretend that it doesn't exist. And so what men need more than ever is standing in our authentic truth and feelings and emotions and being real. And I think a lot of men are trying to operate in this frame of being perfect, having it all together, not being vulnerable, not being seen as weak. And in that, it causes a unhealthy expression, which can result in terrible things happening and people being abused and things like that. And so for me, it's important that we come back to, hey, emotions in themselves are not bad. They're not wrong. They're not unhealthy. In fact, it's the best thing when we can express them in a healthy way, in a constructive way, when we can yell into a pillow, when we can vent to a friend, when we can, go to a punching bag and punch it out, or yell, or all kinds of different exercises that we can do to transmute that stored energy into flow, into freedom. Because it's imagined like this: if you have a tank and it's filled up 99% with stuff in it, and you try to like put more in it, it's not going to work out. It's going to overflow. And so that's what a lot of men are walking around like 99% full, ready to explode, ready to burst. And we keep trying to stuff more information, experiences, whatever it might be down inside, emotions, stuff it down inside. And so I think that's really the big thing that I'm a stand for, is having men reconnect with their emotions in a healthy way so it doesn't blow up. And so when I hear toxic masculinity, I hear men who have not been taught how to process emotions in a healthy way. I hear men who have poor role models in their life, poor male role models, showing them what it means to be a man. I hear men who are operating from a place of trauma and woundedness, and they're coping. They're typically coping, right? It's like it's coping with life and the stress and the pressure in some way. And that can look a lot of different ways. I talk a lot about addictions to, porn or drugs or shopping or food or whatever, sex, right? Whatever it is. Like there's all these things that a man can use to release that pent up tension and anxiety. But the best ones, working out is great, but it doesn't get to the core issue. Doesn't get to what's happening deep inside and putting words to it and expressing that. And I think that's a challenge. Is a lot of modern society is programming men to see themselves as bad and wrong, as the villain, right? And toxic masculinity, and it's unfortunate, but it's where we're at. So it's like, what can we do now? What we can do now is be a better embodiment of a conscious man. What does that mean? It means knowing who you are. It means having healthy practices to express yourself. It means standing in your truth, not being a pushover, right? Because on the other side of that, you might have heard of alpha males and beta males. And so, right, beta males are getting a lot of flack today from other men who are like, what are you doing? You're giving up your power. You're being the people pleaser, and you're allowing people, or your desire to be with a woman, to make yourself small and do whatever the woman says. And that's not good either, because that will also blow up in different ways. So there's a lot to unpack there, Michelle, but I think that's kind of like an overview of the important things that I see.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel like there are things that women need to know or understand to help men express more appropriately whatever these emotions are that maybe are trying to potentially burst out if they have just one more thing shoved in the can?
So that's good. For some reason, I'm going to answer that, but for some reason, I also want to share my wife, Petya. She comes from Europe, right? And so she has this, let's say, a more traditional view of the male and female role in a relationship, a mother and a father role. And I think what might be a challenge today is there's so many different varieties of what we can do and who we can be and how we can show up. And I think there's value in that. But then there's also a neglecting of what has worked up until now, as far as masculine and feminine roles. And like you said, men like physiologically are built to lift heavier stuff, right? and women are physiologically built to, be better nurturers and better
right.
child rearing and things like that, and family right. life. And so I think it's really not being naive about what has worked up until now, and kind of making this quest to say, okay, how can I practice more of what has worked while still being my true and authentic self? There's that quest, there's that discovery of a journey that we're on to what does that mean? And I know for Petya, she loves being in her feminine. She loves just, cooking around the house and entertaining guests and, being in that feminine. Tanning. She loves tanning. She loves swimming. She loves, just enjoying that feminine essence. Is she willing to do the masculine? Yes, she has an amazing coaching business. She's doing awesome in her masculine and building and leading. and creating in that aspect. And I know for me to be the best husband I can be, it's to more help her get out of the need to do those things. And if she wants to go coach, if she wants to build a business, then she can do that, but she doesn't want to have to be forced to do that. And so as a masculine, I'm taking that leadership to say, how can I make her life easy and enjoyable, easier, right? So that's the first thing I would share. The other thing with women is, Petya, what she's done for me is really celebrated me as the king, and I have celebrated her as the queen, right? And so that's a really reciprocal place of ultimate power, quote unquote, right? Like she has the ultimate power to create her reality, and I have the ultimate power to create my reality. And in our relationship, we are equals, leading and reigning and creating in our kingdom. For our family and for future generations and our community, whatever it might be. So I think it's important to see that equality and to celebrate each other without fear of, well, what happens if I celebrate this person too much? Are they gonna overpower me or take over? It's like we really get to address those fears through communication, through acknowledging, hey, this kind of makes me uncomfortable, and work out potential traumas, triggers, things like that might be eating away at the bedrock of our trust, of our connection, of our intimacy. And so for women, my invitation is to be someone who communicates and keeps inviting spaces to communicate and share about what is going on. And it's tough, because I've heard people who ask, hey, let's say people already have a partner and it's not the most conscious partner. It's not the most growth oriented partner. What do you do? And, my invitation for that is to continue focus and celebrate the qualities that you appreciate, the growth oriented qualities, the willingness to have a conversation, the great parenting skills, whatever it might be. And if that person is meant to expand into more of a conscious creator role, then they'll do that. And if they don't, then, there's a whole nother set of decisions that gets to come with that, and like what we get to do to truly be happy and fulfilled as individuals. But that's where I would go initially, Michelle.
So is there something to be said about not everybody is charted to take a conscious path of growth in this area, but maybe subconsciously they're doing most of the right things? Yeah. Is there room for that in?
It's interesting because I have been married for a couple of months now. So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So yeah, I've been with Petya for 3.5 years, my longest relationship. By no means am I a wise grandmaster of relationships, but from what we have and what we've created so far and what I see continuing for years to come, it's pretty special and valuable. And we're both coming to the table with a super intense focus on growth and being the best versions of ourselves. So it's working well because of that. Now, if you don't have a relationship that has that, then I think it's really asking, what's most important in life? Is it important that my partner is consciously growing and going to these seminars and things like that? Is that something I feel like I need to get to where I desire, or to live my purpose, right? To live my purpose in this life? Do I need a partner who is gung-ho about growth? Or is it okay if they're kind of like my rock, that they don't need to be doing all the same things that I'm doing, right? And I can have, here's the thing, I don't rely on Petya to facilitate my coaching and breakthrough conversations, right? Like, and I think sometimes that it happens naturally as a byproduct, for sure. We're both coaches, we both have these conversations. But I lean on my mastermind communities. I lean on my coach to give me that source of empowerment. And I appreciate what I have with Petya, right? And so the phrase, the grass is always greener on the other side. I think we really get to check in and do an honest check-in and say, am I just wanting to have more, and I'm like kind of being greedy, kind of wanting to feed the ego of saying, oh, I could have better, I could do better, whatever? Or is it coming from a true authentic place of, no, this relationship is not aligned with me and who I'm committed to being? So there's some subtle distinctions there that we get to introspect into, but I think that's the inquiry I would say is like, where is it really coming from? Is it this, we're truly not aligned, and the more time goes on, the more disconnected we'll be and the more upset that will be created? Or is it, man, I've kind of just been wanting the 20% that I don't have. I got 80%'s awesome, but the 20% that I don't have, I want that so much. And it's like, well, when we go to meet someone else, they're going to have a different set of 80%, and they're not going to have that 20% that, then we're going to want. So I think that there's no such thing as a perfect person, but we can do our best to appreciate all the good qualities that we have in our current partner or in the person that we're looking for.
Well, I think about this because I was thinking particularly what you said about Petia, kind of liking to sit in her femininity, kind of having a more traditional role. I'm from down south. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been working since I was 15 years old, so I have no problem with getting up and going to work. That's not even the issue. But I really enjoyed, my favorite part of my life was when I was a mom doing nothing but taking care of my little kids. That was like tops for me. It was the best. And being in a position, we lived overseas for a little while. I lived in Central America for a little while where I couldn't work because I didn't have the appropriate sort of visa. It was my electrical engineer ex-husband who had the job down there. And I was able to just be a mom and do mom stuff all day long and oversee the house and all of those things and go back and forth to the activities at school unencumbered without worrying about having to get to an office. That was probably one of my favorite times of my life. And I think it was because of sitting in that femininity, sitting in that role of enjoying my children and being able to really kind of create a home for us. You know what I mean? And I think about that also in terms of men who sometimes they're just some men who I like to get up, go to work, provide for my family, and, mow the lawn on Sunday and barbecue. I'm not trying to do fancy coaching stuff and right. I don't want to do Mind Valley. I want to mow my lawn and watch football on Sunday, and wondering if there's anything. I think there's some value in all of this. Isn't that partly what we're kind of coming to in your program? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. You can just enhance that if you want to. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so for the focus for me personally is like, what is each individual's desire? What lights them up? What's important to them? And when we come home to that, then everything else will unfold naturally. And it's like, okay, who am I? What do I value? What's important to me? And if we're living from that, then we are successful. Right. And what you're saying really reminds me of this book especially for men. It's a great book. Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stephen Arnio. Really, really good. And it just gives a recollection of how the past has worked, right? Historically, how have things worked? And I think that's important to pay attention to, because like, I love all this spiritual and, new age philosophy and what's opening up for us to step into a new age. And I think it's important to not neglect the foundation that we have built upon. And so what I love for men is there's a natural bent that we have to solve problems, to fix things, to be strong, to, be externally focused rather than necessarily internally focused. And so it's like, okay, where do we play to our best strengths? How do we do that? And as a man, that's going to be in the masculine energy things. Right. I'm not saying you can't do feminine stuff. In fact, that's the complete opposite. It's like, no, what I'm saying is you leverage your strength and leverage also the other spectrum, the other side of things, so that you can enhance your strengths and do those strengths even better, be even more fulfilled, and balance. It's having this balance, this equanimity, this place of alignment with ourselves and not going too far one way or the other. And so I think when we look at societies in the past, we can see that traditionally men were the strong ones who went to work and provided for the family, and women loved to provide that nurturing, that love to the children and be there with them. And so I think it's important to recognize that and appreciate that and play to those strengths. Again, I'm not saying no women can go out and write a book or speak on stages in front of millions of people or whatever. But I'm saying it's like, how do we leverage? This is the key. Leverage. How do we leverage the things that are already working to our favor and be able to maximize that? And what I'm finding personally is a lot of men have struggled with video games and things like that, and getting sucked into a world in a paradigm that they're not actually living out here in service to people. It's like they're trapped in their own mind. They're not fully expressing themselves in their gifts. And so with the program that I have, the three big pillars are purpose, power, and prosperity. So the purpose is like really knowing who you are. If you know who you are, if you know what you stand for, you know your values, then I believe you're being a successful man. Now, your power is, okay, like, are you able to communicate that? Do you have a strong mindset? Do you have the will to be able to get up and do what your dreams and your desires require of you? That's power. It's like, what state are you in? How do you activate that state? And the last one is the prosperity. Like, are you truly feeling prosperity, or are you just in the grind for the sake of the grind? Right. And it's like, I'm here to live a very free, fulfilling life and create a legacy, create empires, all that stuff. I'm all about it. And to what purpose? To what end? Why? Why are we doing that? And so when we're truly living from a place of prosperity, it's not about the accumulation of stuff. It's about recognizing the prosperity and the abundance all around us first, so that we can celebrate and acknowledge that and feel good about what we're bringing to us, what we're creating, and also not come from a wounded place of just accumulating more and more and more. And I think a lot of men have a challenge with that. So it's really creating this holistic being is something that I stand for, and being a holistic version of ourselves, that we have the wheel of life. You've seen that our relationships are working, our spirituality is working, our finances, our family, our career, all of it. I believe to have any one of those spokes on the wheel out, we're not living our full life. So I'm here to be the example of that, and invite other men and women to be the example of that too.
I think that's awesome. Now, I didn't even get to the second word that you said, and we're going to be running out of time shortly, but I'm going to mention what it is. And I really want, if you can, to share with me why you use this particular word.
Okay.
You said sovereignty. You said that twice. What precisely do you mean by sovereignty, and how does it play out in life for you? Yeah.
So sovereignty is, I believe, coming in as the creator of our reality, of being a baby, having the ability to move our arms and look to where we want to look and speak the words that we want to speak. Sovereignty is the ability to do all those things, is to have an autonomous, self-led life, self-responsible, self-directed life. I'm the master of my fate, the captain of my soul, or something like that, right? Like that is that sovereignty, is like saying, if it is to be, it's up to me. I'm 100% responsible. All these things are different ways to say that. So it's the essence of, I create my reality. And even though there's things outside of my control, even though there's circumstances I will encounter that may not be what I want or what I choose, I will not let the circumstances be bigger than me and take the wind from my sails, take my energy away, take my joy away, take my aliveness away, take my presence away. No, like, I am the eye of the storm. I am aligned. I am centered through anything, through any challenges, through any adversities, through anything that comes my way. Of course, there's times when we don't measure up to that. But sovereignty is really being able to handle the adversities of life while still staying connected with our sense of power, and ultimately, like, what is God's will for my life? What is the highest and best use of myself? And it might be it seemed like a contradiction of, well, what's God's will and what's my will? Are they different? And I believe that they're actually one and the same when it's coming from a place of integrity, of doing the right thing, morality, ethics, and doing the best that we can in every given moment, being the best version of ourselves. So that's for me, the definition, so to speak, of sovereignty is just the ability to create our reality, whatever our will is, whatever our choices are. And I find that in today's world, we have a lot of self-expression of people. And there's a lot of people talking. There's a lot of people making noise. There's a lot of people shouting, trying to get attention. And I believe that part of that is sovereignty, but I don't feel like it's whole, complete sovereignty, because it's typically coming from a wounded place, a place of pain, a place of suffering, a place of I'm right, you're wrong, of condescension, right? And I'm not saying justice and injustice is bad, but there's this maybe potential skewed sense of that, rather than trust in life, trust in God, faith in God, faith in the universe working through us and working for us. And so sovereignty, I believe there's a healthy part of it, and then there's this kind of unhealthy aspect of I'm just going to get people's attention. I'm going to make noise. I'm going to cause a ruckus. I'm going to disturb the world, shake things up. And it's not coming from a place of, well, how do we actually create more harmony? How do we create more togetherness, more connectedness? I know something you were mentioning to me is there's a lot of misunderstanding that's going on in the world, and fear can come from, well, I just don't understand it. I don't understand this person and what they're saying and what they're thinking. And so I think slowing down to take the time to say, okay, number one, am I coming from the right place? Am I coming from, let's say, Jesus's perspective, right? And that place of compassion, that place of grace, that place of love, unconditional love. Am I coming from there? Okay, yes, great. Now, how can I understand people? How can I connect with people? What is this really about? What is this person saying? What's important to this person? So I think first, it's important to have that self-alignment, and then we can be able to connect with others and hear what they're saying from a place of non-judgment, of acceptance, of love, and of grace.
That's awesome. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to share all of this with us. I am always impressed when I meet someone who is willing to just open up about all of these different aspects, including the spirituality and so forth. It's kind of a challenge these days, right? Sometimes Yep. to say what is really on your heart. And I appreciate you doing that. Chris, tell everybody how they can connect with you, where they can connect with you.
Michelle, thank you. I appreciate you. And how the listeners can connect is my website, menmastermind.com. I'm super active on Facebook. You can connect with me there, facebook.com/TH3Burns, or you can search Christopher Burns and I'll probably come up. But those are the best ways to connect with me. And I'd really love to hear from someone who's tuning in, Michelle, as far as what you got from this conversation, what you're going to implement, what's different for you now. And specifically, I want you also, my invitation for you listening is to go say thank you to Michelle for having this show and for bringing in amazing people like myself and many other amazing guests that you have on here, Michelle, and just the work that you're doing, the light that you're spreading in the world. I see you, I acknowledge you. And for someone tuning in, it's super important when we hear that, when we get that acknowledgement. So taking a minute or so to just say thank you, to just reach out and connect. That's another thing that the world is missing, Michelle, is everyone is all about ourselves and getting to where we want to go. And something that my mentor has been really embodying for me and teaching me is like, hey, take the time, like first thing in the day, to reach out and connect and go love on some people, go acknowledge some people, go practice admiring qualities in people that you appreciate, and do it without an expectation in return, because I truly feel like that generosity is the prosperity that I was talking about earlier. When we come from that place more habitually, then I believe the world will get better. People's emotions and moods will improve, and ultimately we'll all rise together.
I agree with you. Thank you so much, Chris Burns, for being on Somewhere in the Middle with Michelle Berard.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, that's our show this month, guys. You can reach out to me online at urbanbookeditor.com or michelleberard.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram as Urban Book Editor. Feel free to send in some topics you'd like us to cover on the show. Send me a note. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you tune into the show on December 16th when my guest will be conflict resolution coach Jerry Fu. You can find us once a month on Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern at the somewhereinthemiddlepodcast.com. Let's continue the conversation. You guys be good, stay mindful, and remain prayerful. Peace and blessings, y'all.